recently has revealed that there are a lot of factors in Nigeria that hinders press freedom, ranging from secrecy, legal pressure, direct censorship, and force, among others. Findings also reveal that Nigerian press freedom is a paradox and only exists on paper, that is, in the constitution, but not in practice. On governance today, we are featuring the chairman, Federal Capital Territory Chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Mr. Emmanuel Ogbeche. He is a media practitioner with passion for the maintenance of the democratic norms and using the law to promote growth in the country. He will be talking on the issues surrounding press freedom, the challenges of media practitioners in Nigeria against the backdrop of the newly introduced guidelines for the coverage of proceedings in the country's bicameral National Assembly. Welcome. I am Anita Patrick, host of your program. Like we always do on Governance Today, we talk about news, current affairs, issues, burning issues in the country where we have to find or profile solutions somehow with experts on these issues. Like I said, my guest is with me in the studio, and his name is Mr. Emmanuel Ogbeche. Mr. Emmanuel, good evening. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Anita.
Okay, yes. From our prologue there, we there's so much happening when it comes to practicing journalism in Nigeria.
Yes.
There seems to be a bit of challenge here and there when the media have to practice. In your own words, how would you describe the atmosphere or the environment for media practitioners here in Nigeria?
It's a very difficult terrain. By and large, when you have incidences of poor welfare, poor remuneration, when you have government impunity, when you have threats from non-state actors, then you will agree that it is a very difficult terrain. But by and large, Nigerian journalists have thrived over the years, right from pre-independence till now. I think the most significant thing that speaks to the situation in which we are today in the country is when you take a look at the Press Freedom Index of 480 countries by the Reporters Without Borders. In 2017, Nigeria was ranked 119 out of 180 countries in terms of press freedom. That doesn't speak well. Then in the 2018 report, Nigeria went a step down the ladder. Nigeria now ranks 120 out of 180 countries. And one can only imagine where Nigeria will be standing when a review is done for 2019, because by then you would have taken into cognizance what happened during the Osun election, what happened during the general elections, and so many incidences. And just today, I hope you are aware that John Tabiri has also been charged again for terrorism and other related matters. And this is an individual that spent over 2 years under legal detention here in Nigeria. And there are several instances where state governors have acted with clear impunity. You have non-state actors also threatening journalists in the course of their duties. And we are worried that if this persists, then we are in for a hard time. And don't forget that we have the Cyber Terrorism Act, you understand, which was signed into law on the eve of former President Goodluck Jonathan's departure. And that act is clearly an anti-press freedom law. If you go by it, most journalists are still unaware. There's quite a few have fallen under the acts of that particular act. And the way government is behaving does not suggest that press freedom will be guaranteed going forward. You understand? So the situation is fluid and it calls for concern.
Okay. Well, from what you've described, because I wanted to mention the Jones issue because I know he's been off and on this whole trial issue and it's been unfair on his part. I don't know, from my own opinion. But let's look at the whole background, the harassment is becoming more on the increase day in day out. Like you mentioned, when journalists go out, they seem to have this picture for people because they feel there are some that are not really practicing, that are invading, and that is affecting others. How do we crop this set of people out to avoid painting the wrong image for the practicing ones that are doing their job?
Now, thank you. That's very instructive because the menace of fake journalists or quacks is real, but that shouldn't become an excuse for you to delegitimize legitimate practitioners on the field, media practitioners, journalists that are practicing, that are real, that are genuine. Because the danger in trying to box everybody under a particular tag is that you obscure the fact, you give room for victimization. When you say, okay, simply because there are fake policemen, then you tag every policeman you see on the road as fake. That is very dangerous. So when you begin to profile every journalist you see as fake, and for that individual to prove that he's not, then it is very risky because the harm has have been done before you remedy the situation. And what if it's a situation that cannot be remedied after the damage has been done? You get it?
Mm-hmm.
But as a union and as a council here in Abuja, we have taken very practical measures to stem the tide of fake journalists. We have a clear understanding with all the security agencies that have pledged personnel to a committee which we are setting up very soon to deal with this. The council has a history of having dealt with this matter until a few years ago when it didn't properly work out. But for us as an administration, we are committed to this fight.
Okay.
And that is the reason why we went around all the security agencies to solicit their support. The next step is that once we have that committee, we will also be calling on members of the public, we're calling on establishments, MDAs, both public and private organizations to liaise with the council because we've also encouraged journalists to be properly registered. While the issue of registration is not a constitutional derivative, that's the Nigerian constitution, but also the code of ethics of the profession demands that every practicing journalist be registered with the NUJ. That gives you an umbrella, a cover. You know, when there is abuse, when there is harassment and other anti press policies, we can always fight together. So those are measures we've taken, and we are confident that these measures will yield the required dividend.
Okay, I want to say thumbs up to that this initiative put up to see that there's room for that opportunity for journalists to carry out their job. But let's look at how free is the press following the issues we know. How free is the media in carrying on? But if the media is called the fourth estate of the realm, are we really the fourth estate of the realm when it comes to access to information, carrying out the duties on the field?
Well, first of all, let me make this point very clear. There are no absolute freedom anywhere.
Of course.
And when we understand this, because argument has always been made that self-censorship and all of that is our guiding principle. There are no absolute freedom. Okay, but that said, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say the Nigerian press ranks around 6.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying 6 is because we have a measure of freedom that once it does not have to do with the political and economic elite, You are very free to report.
Okay.
But we know that the issues of corruption, the issue of human rights, are the fulcrum on which democracy thrives.
Okay.
When there is no transparency, when you cannot be held accountable, when you cannot be interrogated on the issues of governance, then the press is not free. You understand? And when you look at how governments have dealt with the media, or journalists in particular, since the return of democracy in 1999, then there is also the worry that democracy has not given us, the media, the latitude it requires to work, to function. Because politicians are always too guarded. They don't want the very hard questions to be asked, forgetting that the Constitution has given the media the right to hold government and its officials accountable to the Nigerian people.
Yeah.
And to that extent, why should you be bothered if you're doing the right thing? And also, I'm worried that though we have the Freedom of Information Act, you have government agencies that will tell you, oh, the Freedom of Information Act does not cover our agency. We've seen the NNPC, for instance, the Oil Corporation telling us, oh, the NNPC does not cover us. When you go to Code of Conduct to make some request, they'll say, oh, this official has to give approval. You know, for instance, when the president said he declared his asset, and you say, okay, now you are requesting that you give us, you know, the fine print of what the president declared. And those are sources of concern. And also, my greatest worry, and I think for most media practitioners, are governors. Governors behave like emperors. We have detailed the abuses journalists have suffered in the hands of governors, and it is alarming. You understand? It cuts across all the parties. It cuts across all the administrations from 1999 till now. You get it? In this dispensation, we've had several governors, both of the APC and the PDP, clamping down journalists, you know, in detention for several weeks. You know, one just happened in Abia, where a journalist was detained for over a month by the governor because he was asking sensitive questions. We cannot continue to operate in an environment where journalists become easy targets to government officials. The Nigerian people deserve to know what is happening in government, what is happening with the funds that are allocated to you. Do you understand? In places like Kogi, it becomes to be very difficult for you to ask the relevant questions as to how government is being run. When you do it, you become a marked individual.
Of course.
So we must move from this atmosphere of fear, of intimidation and harassment, to that in which the press can truly hold government officials accountable to the people.
Okay. I like the fact that you mentioned the accountability, but it seems you've mentioned fear. Fear is the bedrock in which most journalists tend to operate. Because like you said, asking the right questions, there's a lot of jittery when you want to ask, and at some point when you want to ask, because like they'll just find a way of burying those questions because of fear. How would the media practitioners find their way out of this? Because that's a major concern. If we can't ask the right questions, we can't give the right information. So how do we go about this?
No, I think it's born out of the awareness that you have a duty to country, you have a duty to citizens, and I tell most often I make the argument that it is not just a constitutional prerogative. It is also a godly demand. When he says, go and publish the word, you understand? What word are you publishing? The word of truth, of fact. And these are sacred issues. So the journalist must have an awareness that you're serving the people and there is nothing too great for you to do in ensuring that society is free, that government officials are responsive and responsible to you as a citizen.
Of course.
So your duty remains that you must ask the very hard questions. You must demand answers politely but firmly. You understand? Because already you're being seen, you're seen as a threat to those in government, to those in private practice that are engaged in fraudulent activities. What then do? You will be courteous, you will be firm, you'll be decisive, and you'll be insistent and persistent with your questions.
Okay.
Because you owe it as a duty to your countrymen, and that duty cannot, because of intimidation and harassment, be swept away. When you do that, you lose the moral authority. When you give in to fear, you lose something very vital, and that is asking questions and investigating how government officials, public entities, private corporations are running the business of government and shortchanging the people in the process. Because if any entity is transparent, is accountable, is open, there is no reason for you to see the journalist as an adversary. You will rather embrace such an individual so that people can say, indeed, this organization, this individual is working for the benefit of the state.
Okay. All right. Well, so much to talk about, because when it comes to the media, a lot of questions are being asked. Well, we'll take a break here. When we return, more to talk about in part 2 of this discussion on the new guidelines for the proceedings, or the coverage of the proceedings in the National Assembly. So stay with us. Alright, welcome back. We're still here, and it's still your program Governance Today. And today we've been looking at the challenges around press freedom in Nigeria. And I still have my guest with me in the studio, Mr. Emmanuel Becker. He's the chairman of the FCT chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. Yes, Mr. Emmanuel, before we went on the break, we've been talking about the challenges, issues around press freedom. But before I go into the new guidelines for the National Assembly, one major concern, or one major fear, or one major issue which the practicing journalists are faced with is the issue of welfare.
Yes.
Their take home, which most people see as the poorest. They seem to be the poorest sector that takes home. They take the poorest pay home, and they work overtime. And I don't think most of them are paid overtime. But if you look at what most people will tell you is, this is what you've signed to do, and you have to do it. Some people will tell you your ID card is your meal ticket. How would we look at this enabling environment and see it suitable for practitioners?
It's a grave aberration for any individual or company to suggest that your ID card is your meal ticket. That gives room for corruption. That is a gateway to compromise, and it takes away your authority as a journalist to report objectively, to be fair, to be professional. We frown at it, we abhor it, and we have encouraged and called out such individuals and organizations that think your ID card is your meal ticket. And we also want to commend a few organizations that have made it as a policy that your ID card is not your meal ticket. Your ID card is your passport to reporting Nigeria on Nigerians for Nigerians. And to that extent, we also worried as a union and as a council that the welfare of journalists have not been given priority by some publishers, not all publishers. And our worry stems from the fact that a pliant and a weak and hungry journalist is a danger to society, a very grave danger to society. And I am very much aware that the NGI, the National, is engaging with stakeholders across board for it to become a matter of legislation, that you must have XY sum for you to set up a media house. Because there is no point mushrooming media organizations because we want to have a very wide media space when staff welfare takes secondary. You're responsible for your gadgets, you're responsible for your internet, you're responsible for your transportation. It doesn't, that is not how societies develop. When you have a compromised media, society can't develop because the corrupt, the powerful and the influential will continue to buy their way through. And so when you don't have people to hold accountable, when you don't have people, you cannot report on issues of corruption, on human rights abuse, on poor governance. How do you think society develops? So it's a matter we are engaging. It's a matter that is very delicate, and we are optimistic that sometime in the future we are going to get out of this mess.
Okay, well, let's keep fingers crossed, just like you mentioned, that sometime in the future this mess will be cleared up. But don't forget the phone lines are there on your screen for you to call in and make your contributions from what we're discussing here. But let's go straight to the guidelines for the National Assembly, because this seems to be a burning issue for most journalists now. They seem to look at why these fresh guidelines compared to the 8th Assembly. But let me start with this one. They have here, they said evidence or certificates of incorporation of the media organization. That's one of the requirements. I think we have that on the screen as well, the guidelines there. And so much. And then they looked at functional bureau in Abuja. That's even if you have an office, you have some in Abuja as well, where you have the staff strength not less than 5 editorial staff and daily circulation of 40,000 copies for the print media, and with evidence to support the claimed circulation figure. Looking at what we have, so many people are saying it seems very difficult to go into the National Assembly to cover the proceedings. But how will the journalists cover or the proceedings to ensure that they can report daily issues to represent or to citizens to hold their representative accountable and also to help to monitor the constitution project?
Well, okay. When I got a copy of because the National Assembly management sent a copy to my office as chairman of the NUJ to provide them with a register of registered members of the union here in the FCT attaching the guidelines. I was alarmed when I went through all of it because it seemed as if they were erecting barricades that were not going to be surmounted. You understand? That is how the guidelines appeared. And for me, there is nothing wrong in bringing out guidelines or reviewing a guideline that is existing because you want it to be more comprehensive. And I did mention the issue of fake and quacks we have all over the place. And if you want to safeguard the institution, because the National Assembly is very important, it represents the aspirations of Nigerians. and therefore you must have people that are qualified. You must have people that are indeed practicing. Because we've also had several incidences of people complaining that there are too many fakes and quacks and people that have no business being there, parading themselves as media practitioners or journalists. So to that extent, there is nothing wrong in having a review. But in so doing, I think what the National Assembly management did not do was to consult properly with stakeholders, with the NUJ in particular. Because if you were to have such a guideline, what input did you get from those that are practitioners? You get it? 40,000 print run. I do not think any newspaper would have met that in reality. You understand? And even if some were to meet it, how many will meet it? We must not constrain the media space and in the process deny large chunk of Nigerians the opportunity to have credible and authentic information. The danger with this guideline is that a lot of Nigerians will not have access to their favorite media platforms. You understand? And when that happens, you have conjectures, you have innuendos passing as news, you have gossips and second-hand information, and it is risky. So, in an attempt to streamline the process, you shouldn't erect some other dangerous measures that will become counterproductive in the reporting of the National Assembly. Already as it is very difficult for you to have access to the National Assembly. Even as a duly practicing journalist here in the FCT, even as chairman of the NUJFCT, it becomes difficult. Then you now erect all of these strictures. You now, as if, bring up a Gideon knot for us to start on time. So I think it serves as a lesson to other organizations, government institutions that are planning this. But for me, I do not think we should wholly throw out these guidelines, frankly speaking. We should sit back and look at where the guidelines are not workable. You understand? And remove the offending and the obnoxious items in the guidelines. Because when you say, like when the letter I got was provide us with a register of registered journalists, we cannot continue to pretend that journalism should become an open market where everybody just strolls in and out without regulation, without following the code of ethics and practice, and there is a body that is responsible for its enforcement. So we must have guidelines that are working. For instance, you don't find all manner of characters in the State House because there is a vigorous process of accreditation, but that while it is thorough, it is clearly not anti-press. You get it? But with what asking for tax returns, are you the tax officer? You understand? No, there are certain items that are wholly obnoxious. But I think we should look at these guidelines and find a way to review it that is acceptable to all parties, because we cannot simply allow the National Assembly to become a free football arena where everybody masquerading as journalists will just walk in.
Well, I agree with you on that fact that it shouldn't be an atmosphere where everybody can just walk in. But at the same time, how workable is these guidelines? Because you're saying, let's see how we can take out.
No. The guidelines as it is presently is not workable. You understand? Asking for, because an organization is responsible for assigning a reporter to the National Assembly.
Obviously, because from what we have here, they need to cover for like 2 years.
You understand?
I don't know.
You know, it's like you have a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old young adult, and you're saying you should have experience of 5 years at post graduation. It's not possible.
No, it's not.
So that is what these guidelines are akin to.
Well, let's see how this is going to work out, because maybe the nationals will have to review this, because from all indication I don't see how visible this is. Because let's look at the new media. New media, it's one access where information is easily um, accessible for anybody, because the first anybody picks up his phone for is just to reach out to information. But before I go, let's pick this call and hear what this person thinks. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, how are you doing?
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from? Okay, I think you have to call us back. Well, I was saying the new media is one easy access for information, because when someone wakes up, the first thing you're looking out for is your phone, see what is there. But from what we have here is that all online media must have at least 5,000 viewership per day, and then the sites must have been in operation for 5 years and provide satisfactory evidence to this effect with clippings of the new utilized that's materials, that's especially parliamentary news. How would you have 5,000 in a day?
You see, that is why I say we should look at it carefully and take out the very offending items. It is not possible. Media is evolving. Everybody is going digital, and you cannot expect, for instance, an organization that is 2 years to have 5 years experience or being around. That means you're constricting the media space.
Yeah. Okay, let's speak this. Hello, good evening. Hello. Hello. Okay, I think you need to turn down the volume of your TV before you speak to us, because we can't hear you if your TV is loud there. Well, the discussion is still on.
Yes, you cannot expect to have a credible media platform that is 2 years old or probably 1 year old to wait till they are 5 years before they get accreditation to reporting. You understand?
Yes.
On legislators.
Okay.
And also saying you must have a national spread. No, the media does not operate on the basis of how wide its coverage is. What if a media is dedicated in reporting issues relating to Abuja? Its audience is Abuja.
Yeah.
The FM stations have a radius. Let me use the FM stations for instance. They have a radius that is within the FCT. Are you going to ban such television stations or radio stations simply because their radius is within the FCT from coverage? What if I'm interested in the lawmakers that are from the FCT primarily, and the FCT residents are entitled to know what their lawmakers are doing?
Sorry, just a minute, let's speak this. Hello, good evening. Whoa, seem to have network jam there, but just keep trying. I'm sorry to break in your conversation.
No. So, will you simply, because of that, say my media organization cannot cover the National Assembly? The National Assembly, and we shouldn't forget that it is made up of lawmakers from the 36 states and the FCT. We have 3 senators from each state.
Yes.
And a proportional number of House of Reps members from across the states. So why would, for instance, you have a radio and TV station from Katsina that is interested in covering people from that axis? It is unthinkable. That's why I said it is. There are so many items that are obnoxious in the guidelines that we can remove, we can modify, we can strengthen. You understand? But as it is, I think we have a call.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm okay. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Mohammed. I'm calling you from Yobe.
Alright, Mohammed from Yobe. Let's hear you. What's your contribution?
I don't have contribution. How are you going line?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Well,
Thank you.
all right. So, if we're going to take out some of these points to look at, we also have freelancers as well. Don't forget that.
Yes.
And just like you mentioned, the like for instance, the FCT is one area where we have different platforms or different organizations, and then you have, for instance, three or let's say individuals from different, let's say TV, the print, and then we have the radio itself, and then for Abuja, if you have a platform, the Villa, the National Assembly, the judiciary, these are three major important things within which you need to cover to ensure that your bulletin or the content is also very important to look at. So if we're restricting at this point, I'm looking at the concerns to how you feed the public on what's happening in these three arms of government.
Well, we're saying the same thing basically because I do not think in the judiciary we have this sort of guidelines.
No, I'm not saying they have it. I'm just
No,
thinking.
I'm coming back to that. I do not think in the judiciary we have where media organizations are constricted by the number of persons they send to that bit. And in the villa as well, they give you specific numbers, for accreditation purposes. And the National Assembly is large. You understand?
Yes, it is.
There are so many things that are underreported. Then when you bring such a guideline, that means we is shrouded in secrecy. Darkness pervades the whole atmosphere, and we cannot bring up our lawmakers to scrutiny. Because we've had instances where some lawmakers have not contributed for 4 years. They have not sponsored any bill.
That's all.
You understand? And when you bring such a guideline, how then do we know those that have contributed? How then do we know what's happening? Because the National Assembly is the heartbeat of the people.
Of course.
And when you put a veil on it, which this guideline represents, then democracy is endangered, and we can as well say the military should come back because we can't see our lawmakers, we can't talk to our lawmakers. And so what is the essence of the National Assembly when we can't hold them responsible?
Okay. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello.
I can hear you. What's your name? Okay. Seem to have that there. But let's look at all of this because it is not just affecting the media houses here in Nigeria, because even the foreigners are also part of this as well. Because I have this clause that says all foreign international media houses seeking accreditation shall abide by all diplomatic protocols established by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Code of Ethics for Nigerian Journalists, and security clearance before accreditation will be considered upon recommendation from the ministry, which is normal. You have to pass out through all those for one to be sure you're even credible to come into the space.
No, there is nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it.
You understand? Because I remember in 2010 when I went to Sudan to cover their general elections. I had to go to the Foreign Affairs Ministry. We were properly accredited. We were even given an ID card, a temporary ID card by the Sudanese Foreign Ministry. You understand? So there are protocols for you to report in a particular country. If not, you stand the risk of having very adversarial agencies that may not necessarily be doing good. There might be spies. You understand, that could just come into the country for some other reason. So there is nothing wrong in having foreign reporters. It's done all across the world, to be properly documented, to know that, okay, they are here. It's even for their own safety.
Yeah, of course it is for their safety. But let's look at democracy today. Is it really paying off for the practicing or the journalists themselves? Because I know you mentioned that if this is not favorable, we could call back the military to come back. But how would comparing both sides?
No, let me clear this. I'm not advocating for military comeback. I'm just saying that
If
if
it has
you
to get
throw
to.
a veil around the National Assembly for us not to have access, so what's the difference? Now, is democracy working for us? It's a mixed grill because we've moved from 1984, when we had Decree 4, to now. It's been a very tortuous journey, but it's been gradual, it's been progressive. Now we have lots of voices. For instance, Clearview is here. A few years ago, it was not possible. So, by and large, the media space is enlarging by the day. While it is not yet Uhuru, one can only be optimistic that as time goes by, and besides, this is 20 years of democracy,
Yeah.
the longest we've ever had. So it is worth celebrating with all the pitfalls, with all the troubles, with all the stumbling blocks. We've made progress. That 20 years on, we can still have democracy. That 20 years on, we don't have Decree 4 hanging around our necks. 20 years ago, we don't have bomb blasts that had to kill some of our colleagues. You understand? During the heydays of Abacha and all of that. So progress has been made because yes, while there have been cases of illegal imprisonment and detentions, we've not had very clear cases of assassinations like in some countries. Yes, while we are not very happy with the ranking that we are at 120 out of 180 countries on the press freedom index, but we are marching on. The Nigerian press remains very robust, and I think this is also represented in the global awards we find journalists from Nigeria winning. That means we are doing something right. While there are still challenges and teething problems for us to overcome, we will remain optimistic that those issues can be addressed with time, and that we shouldn't be tired in insisting on press freedom.
Okay, we won't be tired of insisting for press freedom because that's one of the way forward. Because some people jokingly say the day the media shut down, the country is going to be in trouble.
Of course, certainly, certainly.
So we're looking forward not to have that kind of atmosphere. Well, it's been amazing talking to you on the program, Governance Today. We hope that somehow the governments or authorities are listening and then they'll find solutions to these guidelines because that's one of the concerns.
Well, the guidelines, as far as I'm concerned, has been thrown into the dustbin.
Really?
Yes, because the critical stakeholders were not consulted, and you cannot make a law. Now, besides, let me ask: when you want to make a law in the National Assembly, we hold public hearings.
Yeah.
You understand? You want to have the input of the people. You feel their pulse and know what is appropriate, what is objectionable, what should be modified, what should be amended, what should be reviewed. And so why is it that the management of the National Assembly felt it was not necessary to consult with the people that will be most affected by the guidelines? Why? It doesn't make sense. The National Assembly is for lawmaking.
Yeah.
It's for you to hold dialogue, to hold conversation in order to have a law. And because this is a piece of legislation on its own, it is just a matter of nomenclature.
Yeah.
So why didn't you consult appropriately and widely with those that it was going to affect? It's an aberration, and that is why it cannot stand.
All right, there you have it. It's an aberration and it cannot stand. That's coming from the chairman of the FCT chapter of the NUJ. And that's the much we can take this in. I want to say a very big thank you for coming on the program. We hope that when this is looked into and solutions are preferred, We'll have you come here talk about
Thank
the
you
way
very much,
forward.
Onyeze.
And all right, thank you so much. Well, that's it on governance today. Let's do this again same time tomorrow, and then we'll be here to talk much more on what's happening here in the country. My name is Anita Patrick. Many thanks for watching. You have a lovely evening.